Hello. Can you hear me? Awesome. So I talk about Angular migration a lot. I spoke about it at ngConf this year, in Barcelona at Angular Camp, in Israel at Angular Up. I run workshops on it, and I've just spoken at meetups on it as well. But the same thing happens every time I finish one of my lectures, which is I get a bunch of people, I'm sure I'm going to get a few of you today, you're going to come to me afterwards and a little bit frustrated at the ngUpgrade approach because it isn't working for you, it isn't working for your use case. Now, it's a great solution. It's actually a technical marvel, I think. No other framework has ever put this much effort into helping people migrate from one version to the next. But it doesn't really cover all the use cases. So I'm going to show you an alternative approach today. It's an alternative to the ngUpgrade module approach. It has its own downsides, but I believe it covers a broader range of use cases. And I actually call it bulletproof migration. Well, today I'm calling it bulletproof migration. The name changes on a weekly basis. What are we going to talk about? So first off, I'm just going to do a really quick overview on the ngUpgrade approach. Very, very quick, just to make sure everybody's on the same page. Then I'm going to talk about why I think most migrations fail, or why I think migrations fail. And then I'm going to explain the solution I'm talking about. So thank you very much for the intro, Tracy. But here's another one. My name's Asim Hussain. You can find me on Twitter at JawAche. Everybody gets confused with that one. It's JawAche, not Jawashe. And again, I blog about Angular and JavaScript at codecraft.tv. And yes, I'm a cloud developer advocate at Microsoft, which means I work with the Azure team. So if any of you use Azure or don't use Azure and have any questions on it, come speak to me afterwards. So again, really quick intro to the ngUpgrade. So just for the colorblind of you in the audience, when I say Angular, it's going to be blue. When I say AngularJS, it's going to be red. In the ngUpgrade module, what we do is we dual boot an application with both the AngularJS and Angular 5 libraries. And then this might be the different entities in your application. And by dual booting, this gives us the ability to basically upgrade one entity at a time, be that a service, a resource, a controller, whatever, right? And then what we do, or the way I recommend migrating using ngUpgrade, is basically going through the leaves, up your application, upgrading one entity at a time until eventually everything is Angular 5, then you drop AngularJS, and you have an Angular 5 application. Okay, great, right? That's great. So then, why do migrations fail? And this is my opinion. Now, I think it's for two reasons. One, I call other baggage, and the other one I call clean house. And I'm going to explain these two terms in a second. Let's start off with other baggage. So, we don't build our applications in isolation, okay? We use a lot of other modules. So when you're building an AngularJS application, for instance, you might be using Bootstrap, a Bootstrap library, Bootstrap 2.3.2. When I was building AngularJS on a daily basis, I would be using UI Router. I'd probably use AngularStrap or ng Bootstrap, can't remember. You'd be using a whole bunch of other third-party libraries, okay? So when we migrate, some of these modules are then absorbed into the main Angular framework. So for instance, I would drop UI Router and use the Angular Router. I might not use AngularStrap. But then sometimes you just want to upgrade some of these modules. So as I migrate to 5, I might want to move from Bootstrap 2 to Bootstrap 4. Okay, makes sense. But we're not running two separate applications when we're migrating using ngUpgrade module. We're running one application using one global namespace. So that means it has to share the same modules and the same baggage. And for instance, it means you can't have two versions of Bootstrap running, okay? It's just, you're stuck with one. So what are some of the solutions? Well, one of them is you just keep the baggage. So then as you migrate your AngularJS application to Angular 5, you then still keep Bootstrap 2. So now you have an Angular 5 application running with Bootstrap 2, which never really felt good to me. And I've worked with clients where we've had to go by this approach. And actually has an additional problem where that people might be building Bootstrap 3 or 4 Angular 5 components and releasing them. Nobody is creating a Bootstrap 2 date picker with Angular 5 support at all. So that's one solution. It's not a great solution. What's another solution? The other solution I found was just to migrate your AngularJS application to Bootstrap 4 and then migrate to 5. Okay? That never felt good as well, because then you're putting all this effort to migrate this legacy application that you're trying to get rid of in the first place to Bootstrap 4, only to then just throw away all that code later on. Ideally, what we want is you want a solution where your AngularJS application is using 2. Then as you migrate to 5, at the same time you migrate to 4. That's the goal. That's what we want, right? So what's the other reason I think that migrations fail? And I call it clean house. So I say you have to clean your house before you migrate. Now, when AngularJS first came out, we had no idea how to architect a good AngularJS application. We had no idea. We'd use controllers instead of components. I use scope inheritance as a core feature of my architecture, right? But now we know we're supposed to use controller as. I use scope watch probably far too much than I should have. And maybe I used emit and broadcast too much. So kind of in terms of the current standards, my old AngularJS applications probably sit around here. But imagine if you were to build an AngularJS application today, with everything we now know about how to build a good AngularJS application. That's where you need to be before you start your migration journey, okay? You can kind of upgrade as you go along and fix things, but in my experience and working with a bunch of clients on this, it's far better just to take your AngularJS application, bring it to today's standards, TypeScript, file structure, whatever, before you start your process of migration. But like most of us, we're staring at complex architectures, yeah, with years of investment. I mean, Angular has been out for a year, so if you all are still working on an AngularJS application right now, it's probably at least 2, 3, 4 years old, maybe 5, right? It's had years of investment, maybe tens of thousands of hours of effort, and just telling you, oh, by the way, you need to refactor everything to meet modern standards, it's not really possible, right? It's at best a really depressing request, and at worst, it's just completely impossible to do. And for a lot of people who I explain this to, they say, well, it's almost just the same as rewriting it from scratch. So that's why I've come up with another solution. I would call it a halfway between a rewrite from scratch and a migration approach. And I would have to say I didn't come up with the solution myself. It was actually at my last engagement before I was working at Microsoft. My replacement was coming along and I was training him up. I explained this, like I spent 6 months getting this ugly framework over to get working onto Angular. And after about a few minutes, he just turned around to me and said, well, why don't you just use an iframe? I was like, what? He goes, yeah, just have a modern Angular SPA, built using the modern framework. And then if you want to show the old content, just iframe in your old AngularJS application. And I was like, no, my first reaction was to really object. I actually remember being next to him and I was like, no. But then I thought about it for a few minutes and I realized actually, that's not a bad idea. Right? I actually eventually started feeling dumb for not thinking of it in the first place. And so I worked on it fairly recently, a couple of months ago now, I think, and I basically came up with a demo, and I'll just show you the demo right now. It's pretty simple. You have to trust me. This is currently a Bootstrap 4, Angular 4 application. And look at the URL. It's just a normal URL with I use hash-based routing to /Angular at the end. And then, what do I do now? I can't remember. Oh yeah, and then we click on the AngularJS, and those with sharp eyes can then instantly see this is a Bootstrap 2 application with Angular 1.6. And the key thing is, I think I go, yeah, and then there's the URL. It's the same URL with just AngularJS at the end. And then if I inspect element, If I scroll up, it's just an iframe, okay? And you see, it's a router outlet, and I've got a component called app iframe that I'm injecting in. Now, if I go back into the Angular application and inspect element again, it's just a standard Angular application with something called an app counter component that I'm injecting in. And the other thing is I'm clicking, if I click the number, it increases. But if you see, the number is shared, the state is shared between both of these applications. They're two iframes. They're two completely separate applications. And we're sharing routing, and we're sharing state. Okay? So that's what I'm talking about. They're two completely separate applications that have their own global namespace. So that means you don't have to worry about the baggage. Your Angular 5 application can use whatever modules and third-party libraries that it wants. It's using Bootstrap 4. Your AngularJS, you don't have to clean house, so your AngularJS application can still stay. Its wonderful, unique architecture can still stay as it is. You don't need to touch it. So what are some of the core concepts you need to kind of figure out to get this working? One of them is called root ownership, and the other one is just basically shared state. Okay, so I'm going to go through a bunch of these. So for root ownership, we start with an Angular application that just iframes in our AngularJS application. Okay, or just imagine it's just the whole thing is just an iframed in AngularJS application. And so all the URLs are handled by your AngularJS application. And then, can you see? I don't know, it might be a bit too subtle. Okay, so basically, then Angular starts taking over the roots. You write the root in Angular and then configure the application, so every time that root is requested, we show the Angular app and not the AngularJS application. And then that's how we migrate. We migrate one root at a time over from AngularJS to Angular, until eventually it's just Angular, okay? So but what do I mean by Angular starts taking over? So in this slide, you'll see that the top is AngularJS with, it's actually UI router configuration, and the bottom is just our Angular router configuration. So what I mean by this is we might start off with our Angular application as just one root, the fallback root at the end. All of our roots are in our AngularJS application, and then we simply just, once we migrate a root, we just simply delete it from our AngularJS router configuration and move it to our Angular Angular router. But then we kind of get into this thorny issue because for a period of time you're going to have both an AngularJS and an Angular app both handling different routes for a same application. Okay, so who owns the root? Okay, Angular or AngularJS, and how do you coordinate between the two? I'm going to explain this with a bunch of use cases. So this is one use case. So somebody is on page 5, which is AngularJS. They click something, and the thing they want to click to is page 4, which is again just handled by AngularJS. So there's nothing you need to do. There's nothing you need to do here. It's all handled within the same application. Again, we've got Angular. So someone clicks on page 2, which is Angular. They want to go to page 1. Again, it's just Angular. So it's all handled within the same application. So there's nothing you need to do. The interesting thing is something like this. So somebody's clicking on makes a click on an Angular page, and the actual page they want to display is an AngularJS page. How do you actually handle that? How do you implement that? So I've got some code to show you. This is just one way I did it. So with the Angular root configuration, you can have something called a fallback root. So if you see at the end, it's got the 2 stars. That means if it doesn't match any other root, it will hit the fallback root at the end. When that root gets hit, we inject in the iframe component. What's the iframe component? That's it. That's the HTML for the iframe component. Just iframe, and I set the source value to a URL. It has just a simple CSS. I've tried a bunch of different ways. I think the best thing with an iframe would just make it take up maximum width and size of the page. Otherwise, you start dealing with scroll bars and ugly little issues like that. And that's the actual code itself. I hope you can see it. So the key line is there. So when the iframe component is initialized, I subscribe to the activated root. I get the URL. I then have to do some manipulation to convert this URL to something the AngularJS application understands. Then I have to do this kind of weird thing. So in Angular, it sanitizes stuff by default, so you kind of have to desanitize it to allow that URL to be used in an iframe. And then do something called listen for fallback routing events, which I'll go into later on. So basically, what's going on? So I click in my Angular application. It searches for that URL in the root configuration. It can't find it, so it goes to the fallback route. The fallback route adds in the iframe component, which just puts the right URL to show that URL from the AngularJS application. Okay, that's from Angular to AngularJS sorted. What about the other way around? What if you click on an AngularJS page and the actual page you want to display is an Angular page? How do you actually handle that? You can't use the same solution because you're not trying to put an iframe in a page. You're trying to communicate from a child iframe to parent iframe. So you can do something like reasonably similar. So this is the root configuration for the AngularJS application. You can see at the bottom, I've got an otherwise. That's how you fall back with UI router. And in there, I call parent.postMessage. The parent is a special variable that becomes available to you when you are being iframed in. So it's the parent iframe. So I call parent, and I can post a message to the parent iframe. And I'm passing an object, which is the URL that I want to navigate to, okay? And then in the iframe component, in the listen to fallback events, I'm basically listening for that event, and when I get it, I'm calling navigate by URL on my own router. Now, there's code for this that you can get in the slides later on, so don't worry about it too much. So basically, what am I doing? When I click in the AngularJS application, it's hitting the fallback route, because that route isn't there, and then passing a message using the postMessage API to the parent Angular application, and it's then navigating with navigate by URL, okay? So that's how we kind of handle routing, shared routing between these two applications. How do we handle shared state? Now, there's so many different ways of handling this problem. I'm showing you what I think is the simplest way to handle this problem. And that's basically, as long as you keep your application, your legacy and your Angular application in the same domain, it means it's sharing the same cookies and it's sharing the same local storage. If it's sharing the same cookies and you're using authentication, it means if you log in on one, you're logged in on both. And if you're sharing local storage, it means you can share the same data between both the applications. And it also means you can use something called storage events to communicate between the two different apps. I'll show you in a second. So basically, whenever I set that counter, I'm also setting it in local storage under counter, okay? And then I can just listen to storage events. So storage events are sent every time you save something to local storage. So I can listen to that in my Angular application, and if local storage is saving something called counter, I can then set the value locally. So that's also how you can synchronize data between, like if you have the same application open in multiple tabs, same domain, you can synchronize between all those tabs via local storage. And all that an iframe is a separate application, so you can synchronize between an iframe and the parent iframe with local storage and storage events. So that's it, basically. So in summary, with the ng module approach, I mean, it's a great approach, right? It really is. I've used it successfully several times. But it comes with certain issues. It comes with other baggage you need to deal with. And it also comes with the fact you need to your architecture needs to be at a certain standard for it to work. Whenever working with clients on this, I used to say, well, if you're already using pretty modern modules, and if you're already kind of a pretty decently architected AngularJS application, you've got a good chance of migrating with the ng module. If you're using really old modules, or you've got really pretty bad architecture, when I look back through some of my old AngularJS applications, it's pretty interesting. Then the ng module approach just takes a little bit too much effort to be worthwhile. So with the iframe solution, you don't have to deal with the old baggage. They're two completely separate applications. They can have their own modules, and you can just leave your wonderful AngularJS application with all of its emit and broadcast. You can leave it exactly as it is and just migrate to a beautiful new Angular application. But I think kind of one of the really interesting things about the approach I'm talking about here is that you can use it with other frameworks. Okay? It's just an iframe. I've just migrated from AngularJS to Angular. Doesn't matter. I can migrate from Vue to Angular, from React to Angular, from Angular to Vue. But that's one of the things I'm really excited about this approach, is that I'm kind of getting a little bit tired of all the framework wars that are going on in the world right now. If we can live in a world with multiple cultures, multiple religions, multiple beliefs, then I think we can live in a world with 3 JavaScript frameworks. So that's it. If you want to find out more information, I have a blog post about this on my blog on codecraft.tv. I have all the code, all the samples, everything you need. And yeah, if you want to, you can follow me. Okay, take a picture. You don't have to take a picture, because if you follow me on Twitter, which you can do here, then I'll be posting them on Twitter later on. It has all the links on the end of the slides as well. But yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.